learned a lot, and I followed my passion.
It's Principles of Passion.
I have a dream.
With hosts Chris Thomas.
We really envision a world where all youth are inspired to find, define, and follow their passion.
In order to follow your dreams,
I have a dream today.
You have to put your passion first.
Sitting down with Chris tonight is Victoria Hill. She's an HR business partner and diversity and inclusion committee chair at Advanced Group. In 2018, she started and now leads the company's diversity and inclusion committee, which focuses on awareness, training, recruitment process, and public relations. Also checking in is Anselm Ilumogo Gardner, the National Director of Programs for Momentum Advisory Collective. The MAC is a nonprofit responsible for working with criminally impacted youth and other at-risk adolescents to create sustainable and meaningful lives. Anselm is also an active member of the National Black MBA Association Chicago chapter. This is Principles of Passion. Let's get it, y'all.
We here, y'all, on a Thursday in the middle of COVID. It started out as season, and now it's just the new norm. Principles of Passion, Season 3, Episode 11. Just happy to be here with two amazing people. We got Victoria Hill. If y'all haven't seen, she was on Season 1, Episode 20. If y'all want to hear about her, awesome story. She told it was amazing. Check it out. Your Passion 1ST on YouTube. Victoria, Anselm, how y'all doing?
Doing great. Good to be here with you, Chris. You, Anselm. It's a good day when I can see your faces virtually.
I'm doing good too. Thanks for asking. Not just surviving, but thriving. A lot of good happening. I appreciate you having me on the show. It was good to catch up the other weeks. Good to catch up again. Good to see you, Victoria. I'm excited.
I'm excited too, y'all. You know, obviously there's a lot of uncertainty, a lot of challenges that anytime you're doing something new, anytime you're creating, right? Creation it's not like it was there before. It's not like you have a blueprint, right? There's no structure. There's no, this is what it's going to look like. There is none of that. Right. And so when we're looking at this time of uncertainty during COVID, we have a lot of organizations, every organization that's looking at how do they create things in a better fashion. And our topic today is cultivating a diverse, creative talent pool. Right? And what we really try and do is bring on folks on the show that are overcoming adversity, have overcome it, or feel like they may have adversity to overcome while finding, defining, and following their passion. And Anselm and Victoria are two people that exemplify that, right? When you look at defining your passion and really focusing on some of the diversity, equity, and inclusion challenges that we're having in our community and in our workforce. So again, just very appreciative to have y'all on. Initial thoughts that y'all may want to get off your chest right now. Let's start ladies first. Victoria, just anything in your world right now that's going on, anyone you want to give a shout out to that's helping you, that's supporting you, just really anything you may want to say before we really get on.
Yeah, definitely. Shout out to so many people. Shout out to my husband, Maurice. Woohoo. Shout out to, I know some people from my job are listening. So I have a lot of shout outs. So I'll just say, you know who you are. Love you. And I'm so glad we're talking about this topic today because this is something that's at the top of the list. If not for most people, it should be. So this is great that you're even leading this charge and bringing light to, creativity, bringing in talent, diverse talent that's creative, important. So I'm just happy to be even invited to the table for this talk today.
Thank you. Honored to just be in your presence as well. Anselm, my man, what are you thinking? Anything that comes to mind? Anything?
Well, I got to shout out the fiance, Kate, holds it down in our household with our 3 fur babies. I got to shout out my mom. She lives in Chicago now. So glad she's here. My coworkers, past and present, some are watching. My new boss, got to give her the little brownie shout out, Alex. We are really a partner in tandem. We have huge work to do with Momentum Advisory Collective. And last but not least, in this crazy environment we've been living in with the pandemic and social justice and taking it to the streets, but like everyone who's come along this road with me, they may be new to the road or not, they may be learning. I'm loud and active on social media and in the streets. And the people that really, interact and keep me honest and ask questions and chop it up with me and keep this stuff on the forefront of my mind, but in a way where it feels good and it's passionate. That's what keeps me coming back, to see it making a change and to see the kids that we work with every day doing better and people actually, giving a damn. That's what I'm, here for.
I love it, man. I love it. Making that change and people that, not just talking about it and not playing. Let me take a deep breath with this one. Not playing the politics of the BS that goes behind it, right? Because that there's a lot of that going on right now, and these facades. But I could go into a whole nother episode about that. But yeah,
performative.
Right. Research in action. Right.
Yes.
Let's stop doing the research. Sure. As Justin Cunningham said it, from Social Works. On one of our episodes, he said, research in action. Like, let's not just be sitting around trying to figure it out. Let's figure it out while we're figuring it out. You know what I mean? I want to we got some feedback there. Where's that coming from? Let's make sure we don't have our phones on, y'all, because that may cause a little feedback. If we got that on while this is going to whatever device you got this going on, but we should be good. I want to give just a little bit more. I know y'all heard the intro. I want to tell a little bit about Victoria first. She has her master's degree in human resources, certified staffing professional, and certified HR business partner. 15 plus years of experience in the human resources market. I got the opportunity to work with Victoria, and amazing person, spirit, the way she carries herself, the way that she listens, right? Like, anyone could be a boss, but until you listen to what the change needs to be, you could go in and delegate all day, but what do your people need? And she's been instrumental in doing that over at Advanced Group. So had an amazing opportunity to work with her. I think she's, going to continue to climb the ladder in this space. So I'm excited to see where that goes. Anselm, short time I've gotten to know him. It's funny. You don't know someone, but then when someone tells you about someone and then someone else tells you, and then someone else, that you kind of get to know, like, okay, all right, they real. And we haven't known each other that long, but I've heard from some people, my boy Darren Freeman, shout out to him, and Talent Hugh, and a few other people that have just highly recommended him. He's a mission-driven leader, several years of experience working to close the opportunity gap in the workforce development and nonprofit sector. Moved to Chicago 3 years ago after working with youth in Denver. Short stint in the financial sector, but upon completion of his MBA from University of Denver, he relocated here and just been doing great things within marginalized communities since. So, wanted to give that shout out to, both of y'all. I think y'all are doing amazing work here within this diversity, equity, and inclusion space. Let's just bring this first question up, and, ladies first to start here, but Victoria, what makes an organization diverse?
So I get this question a lot because I do training for our organization, conscious inclusion training. We talk about this a lot. People want to know what is diversity? What makes an organization diverse? That is the question people want to know. And most of the times people think about race or gender. Those are the two things that are top of mind when people think about diverse. But when you're thinking about making your organization diverse, you have to think about a lot. There's a lot that plays into that. You want diversity of thought. When you talk about creativity, you want people who can think and talk about different areas of creativity. You want diversity of education. We have some MBAs on this call. People are doing it. And so, but you want people that have different spectrums of education. You want differences in age. So diverse means different age groups. You can't have all one age group. A lot of different age groups out there. You want them in your organization. So when you think about diversity, having a diverse organization, you have to think about that marital status, gender, race, like I said, ethnicity, national origin. You have to think about, sexual orientation. That's what makes an organization diverse, not just one thing. So, but, we focus on gender and racial because those are things that you can actually see with your eyes. You don't know that's what somebody's educational background is. You don't know what somebody's socioeconomic background is. So you see things. So you see race and you see gender. But there's so many different things that make up a diverse organization.
Yeah. Wow. I mean, you took the words right out of my mouth, Victoria. One of the things that really stuck with me when I think about diversity is diversity of thought. And there are, the primary ones that people look for, because in a way we do have to look for those external diversity factors that help us identify who is not the same as us. But ultimately, I think the goal in doing that is to get that diversity of thought. Because if you have a Black person or a brown person, or you have someone who has a disability or is first generation or is blind or whatever the case may be, all of those can, kind of contribute to their different walks of life and their experiences, which is going to make and shape their thinking a lot differently than you will, some other, a white man, right? Or a cis white man. So like when I'm thinking about, I guess, diversity recruiting or diversity across the organization, as the question is, do we capture the entire, I guess, spectrum of our clientele, right? And that is America, or that is the world, and all of those things that we are talking about that make up diversity encapsulates that.
I love that.
Exactly.
Yeah, I love what both of you said. And even to stretch it a little bit further, sometimes we have this diverse way of thinking where we say, okay, this is diverse, and this is diverse. But then this, I don't know what that is. That's too far outside the box. But that's diverse too, right? And leaving space for that, right? Because for a long time, being Black wasn't diverse, right? Being gay wasn't diverse. That wasn't right. And so we have to continue to leave space for the things that are a little outside the box of our traditional way of thinking, but still hey, that's a possibility. That's something that could make things better, and not always necessarily better, but could be something different, right? That could bring potential for a betterment,
100%.
Yeah, thank y'all. So when we look at really creativity, right, and innovation, because there's, and we were talking about this a little earlier on before we jumped on live, but creation, and this is my opinion, humbly, creation isn't creating a piece of art, creating, a piece of music, right? Producing something. Creating is when you open your mouth to talk with someone about something that's going to turn into action. Where is the integrity, right? To me, that's creation, whether that be IT, finance, art, music, entertainment, sport, the world. We create. When I open if I keep my ideas here and there's no action, that's not creating. That's dilly-dallying, that's mind-gazing, that's daydreaming, right? But the second I open my mouth to speak either with myself to create something into action or with someone else to turn it into action, that's creation to me. So for you all, when you look at how do organizations define creativity, before we even get into that, how do you all feel about what creation is? Let me pull this off. what do you feel about that word creation? Anselm, I'll let you go first this time.
I think of the word trailblazer or pathfinder in whatever it is, right? Like you said, it could be figuring out a new process in the hiring system, or it could be creating a form of art, like, writing a lyric. It's, for me, creating is doing something a new way or a better way. And that applies in every aspect of your life. You taking a new route to get to work that you haven't before, for you, that's personal creation,
Yep.
So that's kind of how I look at it. Just creating something new or doing something better.
I love that. Victoria, anything you want to add there? And
Yeah, I would say, I echo that, and also say, creativity is creating those safe spaces. Our organization, is really creating those safe spaces for us to, have different conversations, those hard conversations. One thing we did that I'm really proud of that's creative, like you're saying, putting those things into existence that weren't there before. After George Floyd was killed by the police, we hosted some conversations with our entire organization where we just brought them together and allowed people to just speak on their experiences, speak on what they thought about that, what they thought about or think about being a person of color, and just really sharing those experiences. And that was creative to me because we've never done anything like that before. And it was, people were crying. It was very emotional because people were able to share, and that safe space was created so that moving forward in our organization, we can continue to do those things and create more of that openness. And people know now, the company is listening, the company is understanding, and the company wants those safe spaces to be put on the table.
Love that.
Yeah. I love that you said that. I did a workshop yesterday with some folks out of Pittsburgh, and it was around trauma-informed care and how to motivate young adults. And so I was researching the pillars of trauma-informed care, and that's the first one, right? Safety, right? And then connection, right? And then how do you deal with the social emotional pieces and reacting to things? But safety isn't always just, oh, do I got like gun shooting? I mean, it means, can I walk into a place and feel like I'm safe? Can I say what I want to say without feeling judged? Without feeling like someone's going to look at me a certain type of way. And we don't look at that a lot until we really dig deep and say, what does that safety mean to you? And understand, people individualistically, what does it mean for them? So thank you. I appreciate that for sure. I would ask this again, but I think Victoria, you did a pretty good job of explaining this. Anselm, with your organization, how do you guys kind of create those safe spaces, for creativity and innovation?
Yeah, we're a young company where I'm at now, so we're growing, and that's one of the things I'm really glad to be a part of with this organization, is to be able to take it from something that's so powerful, but right now in one city, and grow it, and to have an impact on the HR policies and how we do business, how we hire. Be able to push on that as a Black man is something I was excited about. So we've been having this conversation a lot, and they've been in operation for a few years there in Dallas, and there's even some work that we need to do there, and we can constantly grow. And I think that is one of the most important parts of creativity and creating a safe space, is knowing that there's constantly going to be work, but bringing the people to the table and listening to your staff, especially your staff of color, to understand what they need. Oftentimes I've been a part of organizations, big and small, and they assume, right? We have a couple Black staff, and I know one of them wants this, so we're gonna roll out this initiative and train our staff one time, and this D&I little thing, and that they'll love that right now. But that's 50% of the battle. Honestly, more is just asking and listening what the needs are, and then kind of coming together and creating those safe spaces. How people of color, marginalized, or minorities, diverse groups are going to feel safe. And until they do that, like I've also seen where there's good intention and they want to create those safe spaces, but they didn't do that first part, that 50-60%, to ask what it's going to make for people to feel safe. So there's no engagement. Right. Black people aren't coming to the table. They're not participating on the meetings, the storm forums, and everything, and this and that and the other, because they feel like you didn't listen to me. You don't really understand what I need. That doesn't feel safe, which, like you said, to your point, Chris, is the number one pillar, is like, can you feel safe doing this? And we're having these conversations right now at my organization to take action. But before we go off and do 100 things, we just got to center around that very, very fundamental piece of the equation, which is, do we feel safe, and have we listened to the needs of those that we're serving?
The information gathering, the assessment.
Yes.
Right? What the needs are of the community before you go and say, hey, here's what you need.
Right.
I love that. And even to take it a step further in our education system, right, is like, before, every year it's been like, yo, here's your curriculum. Teachers, here you go. Here's what the district says. Go teach this, right? And it's such a blessing. For the first time, we're seeing the district ask, what do you need, community? And they're doing it almost, I don't ever want to say too much, but they're like, yo, no, what do you need? Like, here's another assessment. Here's another assessment. Here's another one. What do you need before we go? And I hear a lot of parents too. They're like, why don't they just get the curriculum out? Why isn't there? It's like, let's pause to see what we all need before we just throw some junk out there, because we know spring didn't work. Spring remote didn't work. Right? So I love that y'all said that about just balancing that and figuring out, how do you pause to do the assessments within community, right? Within workforce, and especially when we're dealing with our young adults here. How do we pause to A, see what they need, and B, give them a seat at the table?
I want to add one thing to that, because I'm in the middle of building this national curriculum for Momentum Advisory Collective, and the first things that I did before I said, I built curriculum before, so I could have sat down and, I know they need the professional skills and we'll work that in there. No, pause, hold up. We've been doing this a little bit in Dallas already. So the first people I want to talk to are the staff who are leading it and the students who are receiving it. How has it gone? What have you learned? What do you wish you could have learned? What does there need to be more of, less of? And that's the way I approach any curriculum I build, is listening to the community it's serving first, and then bringing my expertise and my experiences in, not assuming I know everything, right? And then going and building. And that's how you should do it at CPS. That's how you should do it on a national level, instead of just coming to the table, because assumptions, we know what happens when you make those, right?
Yes. I love it. Listening. So, I love that conversation. A lot of the work, obviously there's the nonprofit we're doing with Your Passion First and programming. On the for-profit side with YP1 Consulting. It's looking at that, right? Looking at, how do we create more equitable hiring processes and strategies through the art of listening, right? Through the art of engagement, through the art of facilitating those type of conversations that are much needed in a lot of organizations right now. So just, again, appreciate to have both Victoria and Anselm on here talking, because they are in the weeds, people. There's a lot of people that are out there doing these shows and talking, like they are literally at their desks and out in the community doing the work that needs to be done. So thank y'all very much
Thank you.
for coming on. Here's another one. I got a lot of these questions here, but one that I know Victoria, as I left Advanced and went on to Purpose, I know we were just on the tail end of these unconscious bias trainings that you all were doing over there, and I know that some people may know the terminology, may not. So what would help, I think, first is if y'all gave your understanding of what unconscious bias is, so that people kind of know at least where we're coming from with that perspective. And then I'd love to answer this question. Let's start with Victoria. Victoria, like, what does that mean for you, unconscious bias?
Yeah, unconscious bias, it helps when everyone knows that every single person, every single human on this earth has unconscious bias. A lot of times people think you're calling someone a racist when you say you have unconscious bias. It's not that. Everyone has unconscious bias. It's been shaped through their lives, from their childhood on up, from social media, different things influence. And it's called unconscious for a reason. Like when we're sleeping, you're kind of in an unconscious state. So you have things going on when you're asleep, you're not woke. Things that are going on that could make you maybe say some what we call microaggressions, but say some things that may not be right, do some things that may not be right. And so until everyone discovers what their unconscious bias is, or basically what they have a bias for and what they have a bias against. So for instance, there's a Harvard implicit bias test that I encourage anyone who's listening to look it up, Google it, Harvard implicit bias test, where you can find out what your unconscious biases are around race, around gender, around LGBTQ, around different areas, so that you understand what's driving you. Once you understand your unconscious bias, then you can start to include people or start being a better person or start creating a different culture. So the first part of that question, when you think about unconscious bias, just know everyone has it. You just need to understand what it is so that you can, learn and be better in your decision making.
I love it. And for those of y'all that heard her, I did put that link in the comments, so feel free to check that out, from Harvard, the implicit unbiased test. So thank you for that. Anselm, thoughts, afterthoughts? What do you think, man?
I mean, that's pretty much it. I when I think of, ironically think of unconscious bias, it's making decisions or thinking about people a certain way without knowing that it's happening. And it's happening so often that we have to actively train against it, find out what it is, like Victoria said, before we can ever correct it. I mean, we could be at work, for example, and be looking at applications, and one of the primary examples that unconscious bias comes into play is name selection, which I'm sure we could talk about a little bit more when we're talking about the workplace and hiring process. But that's just to give you an example. You might look at 50 names and you're supposed to select 10. And of those 10, you select names that are easier to pronounce or that you're familiar with. You're not consciously making the decision, hey, I'm only going to hire these people because their names I can pronounce. But unconsciously, it makes it easier for you to pick up that resume and call that person knowing you might not stumble over their name, which contributes to systemic racism in a way. And unconscious bias does not only impact white people, it impacts every race and creed and creature on the planet. And Black people themselves also learn and need to unlearn unconscious bias and traits that happen that actually work against Black people. Like we do some of the same things with our unconscious bias. So I'm going to check out this Harvard thing. I've heard of it, Victoria, but I had never done it because I wasn't quite sure what it did. But I would love to know what my unconscious biases are. I know none of us are free from making poor or distasteful decisions just because we weren't connecting the dots and what was happening in our mind. But that's all I'll add on to that, is that everyone does it, like Victoria said, and you have to kind of actively work against and understand what those thoughts are to actually, see progress.
You do. And I love the way you talked about looking at resumes, because I wanted to add, because that is great what you said. Even in looking at resumes, when we look at addresses, and so, you look at an address on a resume and you say, okay, that person is from this part of town, so they wouldn't fit here in my organization. That's an unconscious bias, because you're looking at a place and judging the person before you even meet the person. You don't even know who's behind that resume, but you're looking at a zip code. You're looking at a name, like Anselm said. You're making unconscious decisions based on what's in your knowledge from, like I said, it could be from childhood, where you've thought, oh, when I went in this part of town, I saw this group of people. Or when I look at the news, I see that in this part of town, there's more crime than, say, in another part of town. So I want all of my employees to come from this great part of town that I don't see on the news. That's unconscious, but it comes up in your decision making.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah.
I'm gonna give y'all a small story that happened today that, like, it plays into this so well. I'm walking across the street with my son, and this is borderline unconscious, borderline he's just a kid, right? He's 7 years old. So it's just him thinking the way he thinks. But some of us think this way for life, right? And he's walking across the street and he waves at a guy. I'm like, who is that? Like, who are you waving at? It's like, that's our neighbor. I was like, no, it's not. It's like, why you think it's our neighbor? It's like, he's bald, bro. He's black and he's got glasses on. Now, my son, he's half me, which I'm black. I got probably some Polish back in the day, some Cherokee Indian. I got a lot, right? His mom is 100% Mexican. And so he stays with us both. So there's a sense of a different understanding that he has, right, than a lot of black males. So he's like, no, dad, he's black. So he gets closer. And I'm like, bro, that's not our neighbor. And why were you so emphatic with me? And I didn't want to call my son a freaking racist, right? Right? Because that's what I'm like, bro, you fucking believe, right? But I'm like, bro, that's not our neighbor. Just because he's way darker than our neighbor, right? Our neighbor's light skin, and those glasses are whack as hell, because that's not what our. But I was just thinking, right, of the unconscious biases, like, we all have them, and I was like trying to get on him for it, when, like, he's just being himself. He's just seeing the world the way that he sees it, right? And until we actually understand that, like, I may just be seeing the world the way I see it, but if I'm seeing it in a way that's influencing me to look at the world not the way that it is, like, that's not your neighbor, right? Then I need to think about that. I need to think about looking at the world in that regard, right? Not to simplify it Barney style, but like it literally happened to me today. And I feel like that could have been an 18-year-old saying, no, I saw him. That's the one I saw. It's like, no, that's not the one you saw, right? Just because you saw it from a distance away. So I think just really looking at that and how we view the world, and really being conscious of how we assess certain situations.
Yeah.
So let's move on to one that we've been getting deep, but let's get a little deeper here. I think we might have hit that one already, but let's touch on it a little bit more in terms of, it's hard to attract things beyond the norm, because we may have our diverse pockets in our organization that we want to attract people to.
I got some. I want people to take notes on this, because if I had $1 for every time I talked to someone in talent hiring or recruitment that said, we just don't get any Black candidates. We don't get any people of color in our pipeline. If I had $1 for that, man, I would be wealthy, and I'd start an organization that literally did that. But I wrote down some ways. Yeah. Right.
Well,
I wrote down some ways that you can source creatively diverse talent, and not just race, right? Number one is advertise through diverse channels. So where are the mediums or the platforms that people of color on? And you might have to do some research to figure out what those are, but advertise on those and target diverse populations. Leverage diverse job boards. They're out there. You could simply Google search diversity job board, and you can find at least 5, right? Offer targeted, and just to give you some, like there's diversity working, hire autism, recruit disability, 7 million jobs, which hires people with a criminal record, just some of those boards. Number 3 is offer targeted internship or work with organizations who train and employ diverse marginalized groups. So like work with the Genesis Works, the Year Ups, the Urban Alliances, who actually do that work in the communities to match those marginalized communities with the workforce. Number 4 is highlight and celebrate diversity in your job description. And that's not just the little catchphrase that says, we are an equal opportunity employer. No, like the gig is up. What you need to do is say, like, we're looking for a diverse candidate with this, that, and the other. Like if you're genuinely trying to hire someone who's diverse, whether it's for a diversity role or otherwise, say that you welcome that in your organization. Make someone like me or Victoria or you, Chris, feel like, oh, this is a place I would want to work, right? They want someone like me. Number 5 is ask your employees for diverse referrals. That's probably one of the easiest things you can do. And knowing, because I've been one of the few Black people that work at a company, when I worked in finance, that was definitely more often than it is now in the nonprofit world. And my boss was like, yeah, we're trying. I was like, I got some people who would want to work here and who could pass the Series 7 and 63, 9, and 10 and all that in their sleep, and I can refer them to you. So that's number 5. Number 6 is keep the candidate and screening selection committee or panel, whatever you want to call it, have some diversity in it, right? Like the people that are doing the hiring and that are bringing on the diverse talent when you're trying to source it, just if you have that 1 or 2 Black people, ask them to help source diverse talent. And if they don't want to, that's also okay. And the last one is to be visible and celebrate diversity within the workplace, and not just for show or performatively speaking because the country is where it is now, but like constantly celebrate your Black and brown and disabled and different language speaking and whatever your diversity is, celebrate that all the time as an organization, because we know as diverse candidates who those companies are, and we will find you. So I guess that's like my short, kind of long list of how to hire, retain, all that diverse staff.
And as the time it takes to do the work that needs to be done is a lot longer, right?
Yeah.
That's a short list in comparison to the work that needs to be done. And so I appreciate that, man. I really do. Victoria, anything you want to add to that? And but let me pause, Victoria. I just want you to know that from the position that you're sitting right now, it looks like you have this beautiful flower.
Oh, it looks like it's in my hair.
It looks
yeah, it looks like it's added on. I know. I'm looking at that and I'm like, it just goes right into my hairstyle. Like, yeah, something's up there. I should just lean in. Okay, so that was a great list. Like that covered like everything I could possibly say. So just adding to that, I love that you said have a diverse panel of interviewers. We're working on that now in our organization, making sure that when we interview people, there is someone diverse on that panel to help make the decisions around hiring. So I love everything on your list. That's awesome. Another thing that we're doing is that LinkedIn is where most people look for jobs. And so that's the best place for organizations now to put information out around diversity and inclusion. So what we're doing is every month we're working with our marketing team to celebrate, like you said, different cultural holidays that are, for instance, August 26th is Women's Equality Day. So our company's putting things out. And just so the people who are looking for jobs can see Advanced Group, can see our company celebrates all people, and we include everything. So in part of that diverse that we talked about first, the first question you asked, Chris, we celebrate all those categories: thoughts, education, gender, race. We're putting that on LinkedIn. So you see Advanced Group as a company that supports all. So all of that Anselm said is very, very important.
Love it. I love it. Let's go to this one. This is a little bit of a harder question, and I've struggled with it. If diversification happens, but we forget to create the equitable processes and strategies, what happens? And before y'all answer, I'll give y'all a minute to marinate on it. One of the challenges I see in some of the organizations I'm working with today, in the past, few months, is I've been just digging in, trying to understand the organizations, is that a lot of times we bring in diverse talent, right? And we're like, hey, we found out how to market, right? We found out how to bring them in, but damn, we can't retain them, right? And so we look at that diversity and we be like, yo, we gotta. And I'll give you an example. I had a project where they asked me to bring in diverse talent, and they wanted like a lot of diversity, right? And so I brought that talent in over the course of 2 months, probably about 40 or 50 people, and they fired every single one of them temporarily, right? And so, sure, you upped your diversity numbers, right, for the end of the year. But what happened after that? Did the organization change, right? Did you create more equitable hiring processes and strategies? And did you get your organization where it needed to be a truly diverse, equitable, and inclusive organization? And so, again, I'll just rephrase the question. Y'all see it up on the screen. But if diversification happens, right, but we don't create those equitable processes and strategies, what can happen, with that?
You want to go first, Victoria?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I think that this is a great question. And what happens is, like you mentioned, Chris, people will leave the organization as fast as they've come in if they don't feel like they have a voice at the table, a seat at the table. Also, you can have people who don't leave, right? You can bring them in and they stay, but they're not productive. They're not engaged. And so you have a group of diverse individuals who are not happy, but they choose to stay anyway. And so that brings the morale of the entire organization or the entire team down.
Why do they stay?
Maybe they need the job,
Yeah.
People want to work and need to work in most cases. And so they may stay, or they may hope that things get better while, poking a hole in the boat and, not supporting the company mission. So when you think about, when I think about equality and equity, I think about a picture that I put up in training. To be equal is giving everyone the same thing. That's being equal. I give Chris $100. I give Victoria $100. I give Anselm $100. That's equality. We all are equal. We have the same amount of money, but we want to shoot for equity. And equity is by giving marginalized or people who were systemically left behind, giving them more, because others who have not been marginalized have already had a head start in life. And so equity is more of giving the people who are left behind more so that they can catch up, if that makes sense. So what you want to do is, as we discussed earlier, creating those safe spaces. My leader, Kim Marzano, she may be listening to this call, and Kim, Chris. Oh man, she's great, right?
Favorite. That's my favorite.
I know. And I work for her, so think how I feel. But, thinking about when I joined the organization is her changing her management style to fit me coming into the organization. What that means is she listened. She understood where I was coming from. She understood what I was doing in my personal life. She listened to me. She asked questions. She learned me. She made me feel that she trusted me and that I had a voice. She wanted to hear what I said. And then she's recently promoted me. So of course I'm giving her a shout out for everything she does. But she exemplifies creating processes so that minorities or marginalized groups feel comfortable in their organization. Okay, so I'm going to turn it over to you, Anselm.
I love it. No, I love everything you said, and I hope our organization does some, if not all of those things. To answer your question, Chris, like what happens when diversification happens without the processes in place. I'll echo what Victoria said, people will leave. But when people stay, they'll burn out, right? You'll create a toxic work culture, which leads to turnover. But the ones that do stay there, because there are reasons they stay, right? Like you said, they might need the job, or they might be attracted to other parts of the job. So I see this a good amount in the nonprofit world. We have these amazing missions serving these amazing marginalized communities, Black and brown kids. So we go to work every day and we love our work, but sometimes we feel like our leadership, because they're predominantly white, and our boards, which are predominantly white male, don't make decisions that often sit, right with us as Black staff or the communities we're working in. So if you're doing all these things and bringing in all these Black communities and Black people to work there, but you're not letting them have a seat at the table, understanding what our needs are, you are going to create a world of a gap in your organization. And it's like a tale as old as time, especially in the nonprofit world. And I think beyond just having the systems in place, you need to have a process for mobility as well for diverse staff. Like oftentimes, you'll bring in a bunch of entry level or mid-tier diverse staff, whatever their diversity is, but then they feel like there's a glass ceiling and you look up and you see nothing but white employees at the top. So you're also going to be disgruntled in that fashion, and you're going to leave, or you're going to be toxic and you're going to hate coming to work and you're going to not be productive. So you have to think about, do I want diversity or do I want diversity and inclusion? And we've heard it before because we've been on panels and we've talked about diversity. Diversity is being invited to the dance, right? And inclusion is being invited to dance. And equity is being able to dance like no one is watching, right? I've heard someone say that. It's a good, metaphor for me, because I've come to companies and I've looked around and I see, oh yeah, there's some Black and there's some brown people and there's some different backgrounds, religions, and a lot of females and all this and the other. But those people aren't being themselves. They're kind of code switching real hard in a kind of a toxic way, presenting, not coming as their authentic self, and that gets cumbersome. And also, if you don't have processes in place, bad behaviors will happen that your diverse staff will need to police, like microaggressions and inappropriate comments in the workplace. And if you're not training and having those processes and culture and iteratively, not one and done, then the onus is gonna be on those minorities or those diverse staff to constantly be correcting John, like, don't talk that way about her hair, or you can't say that to a Black person, and that gets, that'll get exhausting, and those people will turn over, or you'll create contention between the people that are doing it without knowing, because they don't have training, and the people that it's getting done to. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So sorry to kind of go on a tangent there, but yeah, I'm passionate about this.
I love it. I wanna share something, because Victoria said something, and I just want to share. Hopefully this will come up. This was so beautiful to me. When you look at that equality, equity, this third one on the right, y'all, right? When we look at equitable processes and strategies, this third one, when it says in the third image, all three can see the game without any supports or accommodations because the cause of the inequity was addressed. The systemic barrier has been removed. How do we do that? Right? Like, we could diversify. I could give you these, these things to stand on. I can, but how do we take the wall down and get everyone to be able to see the game?
Yes.
The first step is just acknowledging that there's, we have different views over the wall in the first place. And a lot of organizations, they have to get there, right? And it's not comfortable to acknowledge privilege and acknowledge systemic racism that benefits certain groups of people that, has been the case for a long time. They're very uncomfortable conversations, but they're very necessary in order to make productive, healthy contributions to righting the ship, right?
Right.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's tough, man. We're in a capitalistic society, and if I don't put that fence up, right, then guess what? People got to go pay more money to sit up high to go see the game, right? And so, is that truly equitable? I don't know if we're in a truly equitable state of mind. I know that with where the world is going right now, I think it has to be at the forefront. Right. And that doesn't mean, I was talking with my dad the other day, the democratic way of thinking is everybody has it equal. I ain't saying everybody equal. Right. But I ain't saying the rich got to have all the money either. So I don't know what that balance is. I'm no politician. Right. I don't do research on that. But I'm just saying we have to look at ways to make everyone that wants a seat at the table have the seat at the table and have a part in it. But a big piece of that is educating people. Some people don't even know what having a seat at the table means, and that's what, you as Anselm being focused in the workforce space, I know you're focused on that. And Victoria, in terms of educating people on the lens through which they see the workforce and which they enter it, I know that you're focused on that. And so, I'm appreciative to continue to learn from people that are focused on those issues, right? And not focused on researching, right? And that doesn't take away from anyone that's out there researching and giving us the data and the analytics and the knowledge. But we need to do something with that data. And before that we even have a direction of what data we need to be taking action so that we can bring data to the table to make changes around. So I appreciate y'all. I have probably 7 to 10 more questions here, but I want to be cognizant of y'all time, and y'all had long days and y'all are putting in this work. Anything y'all want to just leave the audience, your people, the industry, the community with? Anything at all?
Yeah, I can start. I would just say, you have to make this a journey in organizations, and just create, we use the term journey in our organization, a D&I journey, a diversity and inclusion journey. And you want everybody to be on board in that journey. And everyone's not in the same place. So you can't expect that from individuals. Everyone's in a different place. Like you said earlier, everyone doesn't understand struggles. Everyone doesn't understand privilege. Everyone doesn't understand microaggressions. And you have to know that. And you have to speak to people where they are, and they have to join the journey where they are. But know that we're doing this journey. We are going on this journey, but we will take you where you are so that you can learn with us and grow with us, so that eventually everyone's cultures can be more inclusive. But again, you can't talk over people's heads. You have to meet them where they are and take them along with you on your journey. And that's how, you can be successful in getting everyone to be more diverse and more inclusive.
The journey, that narrative, that story, and really understanding people where they are. I love it. I love it. Anselm, what about you, sir?
I agree with Victoria's. I wish I could just stamp it and use that. It is a journey, a never-ending journey, and we're all, kind of on different parts of the path. I guess I'll take this last moment to just offer some gratitude for folks in my life that have been on the same path, wherever they are, headed in the right direction. I know we've got a lot going on in the outside world. Without getting political, there are definitely forces and people that are trying to take us backwards, and that's nothing new. History repeats itself. But so I want to take this moment to thank people that, like I said in the beginning, care and show up every day, whether it's at work or in the streets or in social media or in, conversations with your family at the table that are very uncomfortable, or at work, or on podcasts, or whatever. However you're showing up, I want to thank you for showing up, because it ultimately means a lot to me, my future kids, and the communities that I'm working with. And I know it means a lot to every single other person on this call and probably listening as well. So thank you.
I love that, man. I love that. One thing that I heard, a quote in the recent week that kind of sums up the whole racial tension going on in the US and probably globally right now. Obviously, we're more affected here in the US. Anthony Clark, if y'all don't know Anthony Clark, look him up. Look up Anthony Clark and Oak Park. Community activist, he teaches for the high school. There's a lot of work in the community here in Oak Park, as well as on the west side of Chicago. But I noticed something that stuck out to me in all this. He said, and not verbatim, but close enough that I remember enough to quote him. He said, privilege is thinking that when Donald Trump is out of office, that our work is done. Right. And it gives me chills again to be able to say it. Like, the journey is just beginning.
Right.
The wokeness that people are feeling right now, most Black people have been feeling this for their whole lives, waiting for an opportunity like this for everyone else to wake the fuck up. Excuse my language, Mom. Love you. We've been waiting though, right? We've been waiting. And so the time is now for us to look at how do we cultivate more diverse and creative talent pools. The time is now to do the action. The time is now to stop looking at pointing fingers, right? But looking at how do we really understand people better and give people that we're trying to understand a seat at the table, right? Because if we're steady trying to be the delegators, right, then who's really making the calls? Who's calling the shots? It's the same people that are calling the shots. That are calling the shots. So, we got to work on it. We got to work on creating these more diverse talent pools. Y'all are doing it every day, Anselm and Victoria. I'm so appreciative to have y'all on and just to be a part of y'all life and the work that y'all are doing. And I'm looking forward to continued collaboration and whatever that may be with us. Thank you. Any last words, last moments, last I forgot this.
Should I show him the tattoo though?
Let me see.
Should I show
Let me see. Oh, I forgot about this. I forgot about it. Put it up. Put it up.
It's a new piece. It's a new
Put it
piece.
up. But we got to talk about it real quick because there's some meaning here. So go from the top down. Talk about it.
Top. We got the Nigerian flag, and Africa is in the middle of it with Nigeria. The heart where it's placed, and that's because I'm first gen. That's where the Elamogo in Kencho comes from. That's my dad. It's in the blood. Now, what can you see? Tell me next.
Bring it a little closer. I could see it says, I will not stay silent.
Right. That's my MO. Like, I'm not going to shut up about something if it's not right. I will not stay silent. And then what do we have?
Is it no justice?
No peace.
No peace.
Right. Then you got be a good person, which is pretty damn simple, you would think.
Right.
Yeah, right here.
Such a relative term.
I see rise. Rise.
Oh,
there's something that says rise.
Still I rise. That's Maya Angelou.
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
R.I.P. the GOAT. And Black Lives Matter and Betta. So Betta's the one that
spell it.
Betta. So let me just real quick story before we hop off. I know we're on and I gotta eat too. I'm a big guy. But Betta, let me tell you guys and all the listeners about what Betta is or who Betta is. So I guess when I was little, my grandmother she passed away before I was born, and I had my great grandmother, and I said, Mom, is that grandma? And my great grandmother at the time, she said, has since passed away, but she said, I'm like your grandmother, but better. And I was like, oh, and I heard better, not better. So I started calling her Betta, and now my mom goes by Betta to my nephew. And anytime you're a grandmother, you're now Betta. So that's what that means. So it's kind of a double meaning. It means like do better, but also the family ties. So that's the little piece I got. I had to flex it.
Oh, you should, bro. That's a dope piece. Hey, shout out to your artist. Who is it?
His name is Troy over at Deluxe Tattoo on Irving Park Road.
Okay.
Oh, yeah. Awesome. Deluxe Tattoo, Troy.
Deluxe, Troy.
Nice, like it.
Check him out.
Yes.
Check him out. So, y'all, if y'all want to follow us more, we're on Facebook, YouTube, Your Passion 1ST, Instagram, LinkedIn, all that goodness, right? But more importantly, we're in the community, right?
We're out there
with organizations that are doing the damn thing. How can we help, right? How can we do more of what we're doing with helping young adults connect with their community, but also connect with the workforce, really breaking down some of those gaps in between, those areas. So again, just so humbled to have two amazing people on that are putting their passion first and overcoming adversity, as we all are through this time in the pandemic around what we thought was the season, but now is the new norm. So let's make it our new norm, but let's make the best of it, y'all.
Yes.
As I always like to end it, y'all, in order to follow your dreams, you got to put your passion first. I appreciate y'all coming on.
Thank you.
See y'all next week, y'all. All right. Holla. Yep.